I'd like to convene the October 23rd Parks and Recreation Commission. I'd like to start by Natalie calling the roll call, please.
Commissioner Cripps? Commissioner Greenfield?
Here.
Commissioner Lemire? Commissioner McCulley? Commissioner McDougall?
Here.
Commissioner Moss?
Here.
Commissioner Rechtel?
Here.
Councilman Scharf?
In terms of agenda changes, requests, and deletions, that is the next item. Because we have so many visitors here, I'm going to change the agenda. I'm going to do oral communications on subjects other than item number 2, which is the Rinconada pool. And I'm going to take item number 4 and move that to the end. But after the oral communications, I'm going to ask Commissioner to have a presentation on the Palo Alto to Sea hike that Commissioner Moss took. We've delayed that presentation several times. I think the commission would very much benefit from understanding that. And in fact, I think we'll start with that. Since we're changing the agenda anyway, Commissioner Moss will start with that.
Last year, we approved the Parks Master Plan for 20-year Parks Master Plan, and one of the items on there is to enhance and expand our ability to make connections to other parks and open spaces throughout the Bay Area. And in that light, my wife Jane and I hiked from Palo Alto to the sea in 3 days on July 1st through 4th, and I wanted to show a quick presentation of that hike, and then I have a couple comments, and then we can talk about it. We started in the Rastradero Preserve, 9 of us. Went through Foothills Park. To the very top of Foothills Park and on into Los Troncos Open Space Preserve. Always on open space, land, public land. The Franciscan Loop takes us to the parking lot at Montebello Ridge Open Space Preserve, where we lost some people and added 2 or 3 more people and donned backpacks to hike up to the top of Black Mountain, where you can camp overnight. Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space Preserve campground for $2 a person.
Commissioner Moss, keep the mic right in front of you.
Here we are at the top of Black Mountain. You could see the sea tantalizingly close. The next morning we started hiking back down to the parking lot and on into Skyline Open Space Preserve, and from there to the Chestnut Tree Farm, which is Long Ridge. And from Long Ridge we ended up going on Ward Road, which takes you towards Portola State Park. There's one small area that's private land, but we have an easement. And you get into Slate Creek, which takes you down into Portola State Park. And that was day 2. So this is Portola State Park. We added 4 or 5 more people, lost a couple people. And now we're on our way from Portola to Butano through Pescadero Creek County Park. And we're up heading towards Big Basin State Park through a small 1-mile section of Red Tree private tree farm. And now we're at the very top of Butano Ridge at 1,900 feet elevation, and it started to rain, more mist, and now we're walking into Butano State Park, and several miles into Butano State Park, very exhausting. And we go to from the Butano Fire Road to the Olmo Fire Road, which heads down into Butano Park, and we were looking out over Big Basin State Park. We've now reached Butano State Park. We lost our last person, and now we're walking down to Brazos Creek State Beach, where we dipped our toes into the ocean after 3 days, 45 miles, 10 parks, 6 agencies, 11 separate maps. And that's it. So as I mentioned, the goal is to try to do this on as much public land or easements, public easements as you can. This was also in preparation for our hike on the Camino de Santiago, which was just 3 weeks ago. And similar to this, you can do one-day chunks and still make it all the way. And then one thing I want to mention is that here in the Bay Area, in Spain, there are many pilgrimage paths, but here when Junipero Serra walked from mission to mission, it was supposed to be about a one-day walk or horseback ride between missions. And we have many regional trails like San Francisco Bay Trail, the Bay Ridge Trail, and the 32-mile East Bay Regional Parks Trail. We can get to all of them from Palo Alto, walking from Palo Alto. So the message is that a pilgrimage is for many reasons, but they all have one goal in common, and that is you're moving towards some goal. And we here at the Bay Area have many opportunities to walk or bike through spectacular scenery to get to beautiful and meaningful destinations, and we should embrace these opportunities, no matter what our age and station. And Palo Alto has those connections to so many of these pathways, and we should be enabling and encouraging each other to take them. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Moss. We do have a presentation, a discussion later on the agenda, review of where we are relative to the master plan. And I think one of the things that is in the master plan is the importance of connecting parks within Palo Alto and connecting Palo Alto to neighboring communities. And I think that, your exercise, maybe off the top of your head, can you repeat those numbers again? That was 144 maps and 28 parks.
45 miles, 11 parks, 10 parks, 6 agencies, and 11 maps.
Yeah, and except for the part that there was 11 maps, I think the rest of it is just incredibly good news about the environment that we live in here in the Bay Area and in Palo Alto, and I thank you for bringing that to us. And congratulations on both walks. Keith or Jeff, do you have any comments, questions?
Oh, just real quickly, it sounds like a great time and a great experience, and thank you for showing us the way.
I guess I have one question for Darren. With regard to maps, do we coordinate with any app makers to put our maps in a Palo Alto specific app or any general app?
No, but we're working on it. We got a good recommendation for Commissioner Moss to do something with some online mapping, and we're already in touch with our GIS people about trying to implement that.
Okay, very good, thank you.
And I did present to the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space Board in August, and they put me in touch with their mapping person, and they're going to do very similar to what Palo Alto is going to do and try to connect maps where possible so that it's all seamless, which is pretty good news, and that they've just started that now.
For anybody that's sitting there thinking, well, gee, you know, I've got my iPhone, so I should be able to get any maps. I think you probably experienced a great deal of that walk was there were no cell towers, and there was no cell phones. So the good old-fashioned map would have been nice. Thank you. To go to the next agenda item, which is oral communications and public letters. I have two speaker cards, one from Monica Williams, which I know is not on the subject of Rinconada, and I have one from Timothy Groves. Timothy has checked off saying non-agenda item. Is this an agenda? Are you speaking on Rinconada or?
Yes,
Okay, so you're speaking on Rinconada, so it's an agenda item. And then several of the speaker cards were marked with item number 3, and what we were looking for actually was the item under the business items, and so I'm assuming that anybody who said item number 3 is really item number 2 on the agenda, and if that's not true, you should speak up. With that, I'm going to invite Monica Williams. Monica, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair McDoodle and Commissioners. I'm Monica Williams, President of the Palo Alto Pickleball Club. I want to update you and tell you how happy we are that the City Council approved the new court policy that you finalized last week. It's good that last month, sorry. It's good that we now have the same privilege that tennis players have, always had, to be able to reserve the courts for tournaments. And we applaud the Recreation Department for bringing this new court policy to fruition. Excuse me. Our club has now grown to 400 members, including 160 Palo Alto residents, and we play every day of the week. We're looking forward to hosting the Encore Senior Games later this week, and last week the Palo Alto Girls Middle School reached out to us and asked if we could help teach them pickleball during the week. New City Palo Alto classes started this week, and both classes are full. We're looking forward to the day when the City of Palo Alto will provide pickleball for all. Tennis players have a choice to play anytime on any of Palo Alto's 54 public tennis courts. Pickleball players have no courts on which to play. Currently, unless our club members put up portable nets that our club has purchased, there is nowhere in Palo Alto to play pickleball. We have to store the nets in lockers. If club members are not at the courts with a locker combination, no one else can play pickleball. We need access to pickleball for all. It's time for the City of Palo Alto to join Santa Cruz and San Francisco, Foster City, and just recently Sunnyvale. 4 pickleball courts can fit on 1 tennis court, and all of these cities have converted a couple of tennis courts to offer their communities a place to play pickleball. It will be nice when the 2 paddle tennis courts at Mitchell are converted to pickleball courts, but they will only accommodate 8 players. We are appealing to the city to provide permanent pickleball courts, similar to permanent tennis courts, so that anyone can drop in and play at any time. Let's have pickleball for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you for the extension of helping the schools learn pickleball. So that would move us to the first item, and I'd like to keep that in the proper order on the agenda, the approval of the draft minutes from September 25th. Pardon me? We're moving the staff report to the end. Do I have any comments, questions, or can I have a motion?
I move for approval.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the Rinconada Pool Aquatics contract update. Jasmine LeBlanc, welcome this evening. Darren, are you going to do an introduction or Jasmine's on her own? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jasmine LeBlanc,
That's your phone.
and I am presenting an update to the Palo Alto Aquatics contract. Let's see. Oops. I apologize. So, as many of you know,
Jasmine, could you please move the microphone closer?
it's not moving. Is this better? As many of you know, Palo Alto has 2 outdoor pools at the Rinconada Aquatics Complex. One is a 14-lane performance pool, and the other is a large play pool with spray fountains, play equipment, and space for kids to play and swim lessons to occur. We currently offer the following programs at the Rinconada pool: lap swim, open and recreational swim, swim lessons, a youth swim team, and adult masters swim team. So several years ago, we started to have staffing shortages in the Learn to Swim program and the open and lap swim programs. This led, at the same time, we were getting more and more customer feedback that we should expand our open hours and offer more swim lessons. So in the summers of 2015 and 2016, the city partnered with an aquatics vendor, Team Sheeper, to provide summer swim lessons. Those swim lesson contracts were very successful, so the city put out a request for proposals to do a full suite of pool operations in, I believe, 2015. And at the time, Team Sheeper won that bid. We put that into effect beginning in August 2017. So Team Sheeper has overseen the pool operations for about a year and several months at this point. And it's been quite a success from the staff's perspective. Some of the program enhancements that Team Sheeper has been able to implement at the pool have been to respond to those customer requests for increased swim lessons and increased swim open times for recreation and lap swim. So the swim lesson program has doubled year over year in serving almost 900 community members. They also introduced a summer swim camp program that served 350 children this summer. They've expanded the recreational swim program to be a year-round recreational swim program, and they've expanded lap swim hours pretty significantly as well. So because of the successes in this short-term aquatics management program, the city put out an RFP this summer to go seeking a longer-term partner. And our goals have been to identify a partner who will collaborate with the city and the community to provide high-quality, accessible, and safe aquatics programming at the Rinconada Pool Complex. We put this RFP out on July 19th. We had an optional pre-proposal meeting on August 7th. All proposals were due August 21st. And through September and through now, we've been reviewing the contract proposals that came in and developing a new contract. You can see tonight here, we're presenting to the Parks and Rec Commission. And it's our expectation that the contract will be presented to the City Council on November 26th for their approval and to have a start date of January 1st. So our evaluation criteria really reflects the goals that we had: safety of pool users and aquatics employees, city and customer costs, quality of service and customer satisfaction, and diversity of programming and accessibility. The city received one bid for this program from Team Sheeper. That's the same operator that we currently have to provide comprehensive swim programming. The city was satisfied with the response after doing the review and found that they would offer a flexible model that can handle increased demand at multiple times throughout. They have the ability to change as needed throughout seasons, throughout the week. They have a goal to continue to expand services, and our customer feedback has been very positive in general. So this is I apologize for everyone in the audience trying to read this, but this is the proposed schedule for January. There are, what you can see, the notable changes are lap swim sort of continuously throughout the day on as many weekdays as possible. Masters swim times at the same times of day as they're currently offered. PASA at the same times of days they're currently offered. Recreational swim at the same times of day as they're currently offered. I will say this is January, so this is probably the lowest usage time of year for aquatics. So this would look very different if we were looking at July. Jumping ahead a little bit, one of the features that we've had in this current contract and that we're developing in this next contract is that the city will have oversight over the pool scheduling. So Team Sheeper will propose a schedule, but city staff have to approve any changes. And this was something that we heard from many pool users, that they wanted to make sure that this treasured asset is still a city asset, and we're responding to our customers' needs. So the initial pricing for January that they've proposed is very similar to the current pricing that's offered at the pool. It continues to have a 30% discount for seniors and youth who are purchasing the monthly or quarterly passes, as well as participating in drop-in programs. There's a slight increase for monthly fees for adults. And I should clarify, this is resident pricing that you're looking at, from $45 to $48 monthly for lap swim. And what that translates to for seniors is from about $31 to about $33 a month for senior residents. And there is an introduction of an annual fee to sign up for those monthly passes. And so we're very cognizant that the swimming public, there are some very price-sensitive folks, and we don't want to try to increase prices unless absolutely necessary, but aquatics, it's very expensive to operate a pool. And so this is an attempt to collect a little bit more revenue to cover those costs that just keep going up. Jumping back to some of the other basic contract terms, this is a revenue share agreement, just as we have in the current contract. It has a 5-year term, comprehensive programming. The city will continue to provide facility management, and we will expect to have continue to have a high level of engagement and collaboration with the city and swimming community. The scope of work will be the same as what we have now: swim lessons for all ages and skill levels, summer swim camps, year-round lap swim programs. We've requested seasonal recreational swim, although they've proposed to do it all year round. An adult masters swim team, and this is a change and why many people are in the audience, that they have proposed to provide the masters swim team directly through their operations, and a subcontract with PASA, that's the youth swim team, so that subcontract would continue. And then in addition, discounted pricing for Palo Alto residents, collaboration with the City of Palo Alto for Palo Alto's summer camp access, pool parties, and they're hoping to add some additional aquatics programming if possible. So just kind of to summarize, there's some slight changes to the weekly programming schedule, and notably that there'll be continuous lap swim availability throughout the day on weekdays, an introduction of an annual administrative fee, some slight changes to customer pricing, a master's programming operational changes, and some slight changes to the revenue share terms. So with that, I'm finished with my presentation.
Thank you, Jasmine. What I'm going to do now is move to public comment. But while we're doing public comment, I hope you can listen. But at the same time, if you have a look at your one slide that I think had a before and after, I think they're both the same.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
The pricing,
Oh,
the pricing slide.
This
yeah.
one.
You're right. Excuse me. This is showing resident pricing. I apologize for that. It's not showing non-resident pricing. I can get back with that.
If you get back to us, I
Yeah.
just thought I'd clear up that now
Thank
rather
you.
than going through that 25
Yeah.
times as we go through. Thank you for that. I'm going to invite speakers up in the order that I have the cards. I might have shuffled them a little bit from exactly the order that they were handed in. We have 14 or 15 cards, so we're going to be doing 2 minutes for each speaker. And you'll notice that there'll be a green light, and then after 1 minute, when a 1 minute warning will come on, and there'll be an orange light. After the public has spoken, then we'll go to commission comments. So I'm going to start with Lindsay Beldam.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Belden. I've been a master swimmer, Rinconada, for approximately 36 years. It is vital to my health and well-being, and I would be lost without it. I have made many friends, as well as getting my exercise needs met, along with pickleball, which I've also been here for meetings, and walking Rinconada. Rinconada Masters is not broken. It does not need fixing or replacing. It serves the needs of a portion of Palo Alto's citizens and helps to create community within our city. We don't need to replace the coaches. We don't need to add lap swimmers to our scheduled times and lanes. We don't need to turn it into a club whose structure we know nothing about. Rinconada Masters is a functioning program in and of itself, with dedicated coaches, lifeguards, workouts, social activities, and our own yearly swim meet, which is well attended by many other Masters communities surrounding the Bay Area. To allow Tim Sheeper to restructure this program would be a big mistake and very disappointing to the many people who have supported this program for many years. He already has a number of master's programs in the surrounding area, I am told, and controls all of the other swimming programs at Rinconada, so I don't understand his need to want to take over this program. We like our program, as evidenced by the number of people who have supported it for many years. We hope that you will see fit to keep it the way it is and continue to serve the needs of the Palo Altans who frequent it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shawnee Krikarian, and the next speaker will be Don Williams.
Hi, my name is Shahei Krikarian. I'll keep it brief. I'm a Palo Alto resident, and I've been swimming with the Rinconada Masters for about 8 years. It's been a great experience and something I enjoy a lot, and would like to see the program continue. And again, just like Lindsay said, I don't see the need to have the program replaced by a different team, different structure. like it the way it is, love it the way it is. Would like to see it continue. Thanks.
Thank you. Terry Baxter Smith, followed by Eden Jellies.
Sorry, did I hear? I apologize. Did you say Don Williams would be next?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was not deliberately trying to.
I'll try to, prove that I was worth hearing.
As each of you speak, if you wouldn't mind saying if you're Palo Alto residents, I think that's always important for the record.
Okay. So my name is Don Williams, Palo Alto resident, Palo Alto High class of 1984. I learned to swim in Rinconada Pool in the early 1970s, swam with the old Palo Alto Swim Club under John Williams through the mid-70s into the 80s. Joined Rinconada Masters in 1989, and have been a member ever since. I think that I'm representative of the strong existing community of folks who use the pool and who predated Mr. Sheeper. And the Rinconada Masters with a 40-year history is obviously an important part of that strong existing community of users. We have a long history, a strong team spirit, and again, we are a community. So what I would ask is that rather than pushing out the Rinconada Masters, Mr. Sheeper, who is a relative newcomer to the pool, work with us to try to come up with a solution that continues the program, also accommodates his needs and the city's needs. I think by collaborating, as I heard various people mention earlier, we can reach an outcome that's favorable for everyone, but being pushed out doesn't feel like collaboration at all to me. I think that from our perspective, Rinconada Pool is here to serve the community. Mr. Sheeper undoubtedly worries about revenue and profits and issues, control and issues like that. Those are all fair considerations. We understand the pool doesn't operate for free, but again, there is a community. We are a bunch of Palo Altans. Please work to preserve our program. Help us work collaboratively with Mr. Sheeper, who has not shown a strong indication, as I understand it, to do so, and preserve our program and accommodate his needs and the city's needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry Baxter Smith, followed by Eden Jellies.
I'm Terry Baxter Smith, assistant swim coach of the Rinconada Masters. Graduate of Palo Alto High School in 1982, and I do live in Palo Alto. Last week, Rinconada Masters was totally blindsided when Tim Sheeper informed our head coach, Carol McPherson, and a couple of our advisory board members that our subcontract with him was not going to be renewed for 2019, thus ending Rinconada Masters' 45-year relationship with the community. Last week, Tim gave Carol 3 reasons as to why he is not renewing our contract. I'm going to speak to you right now as a former aquatic director and not a swim coach. But as an aquatic director, a former aquatic director, I can say that all of these things can be worked out. But Tim is not interested in doing so, and he told us that. At last year's Parks and Rec meeting in May of 2017, a member of your Recreation Community Services Department spoke about Tim Sheeper's contract, and this is part of what she said, end quote. We would like to add into the contract language that guarantees Rinconada Masters and PASA have the same pool access that they've had in the past. We want to make sure the terms work for everyone. That is very important to us to maintain what has worked for so long at the pool. End quote. Now, 16 months later, Tim has no interest in working with us, not collaborating with us, therefore not renewing our contract. In the past, Rinconada Masters has had a wonderful, productive, positive, and beneficial relationship with the Parks and Recreation Department, the City of Palo Alto, and the previous aquatic directors. In regards to the snack chats or outreaches, and I don't know exactly what they're formally called, but there have been a few of them. They've been in March and in October, and I think that they are put on by the Recreation Community Services Department. But I would like to say that our Rinconada Masters swim team has never been notified of any of these snack chats or outreaches.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. And I can also say that our team in
Thank
the
you,
last
Terry.
year has not felt any support from Tim Sheeper or the Recreation Community Services Department.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much for listening.
Is it
It's Edith Gillis.
Edith? Okay, thank you.
Hi. I'm 82 years old. I've lived in Palo Alto for 35 years, and I have swum with Rinconada Masters for 35 years. I'm a historian, and I want to address the history of Rinconada and how our history has fit into the history of Palo Alto for 45 years. As you know, we're a swim program for adults who wish to participate in a structured swim program. We're part of a national master's program. Some of our members compete, many do not compete, but opt for a rigorous training program for health and/or recreation purposes. Our Rinconada Masters program was the first and the only master's swim program on the peninsula for many decades. But we've always been more than a swim team. We're a community of people of all ages and occupations. We're also a family, and we've grown the way families do. When someone has a birthday, we celebrate. When someone has a baby, we celebrate. When someone passes on, we grieve together. There are Palo Altans in our program who went to grade school, high school, and college together. They came back here. And our program has been in this city for 45 years, long enough to service generations of Palo Altans. But Palo Alto has changed in 45 years. And the point I want to make is that with change, one has to maintain roots with the past. And Rinconada Masters, with its 45-year-old history, is part of the past and part of the tradition of Palo Alto. The city of Palo Alto has decided the public pool that has served generations of its
10
citizens
seconds.
should be farmed out, and that the future of Rinconada Masters is threatened with extermination. I ask you to save our master's program as it currently exists within the changes that will take place in the overall governance of Rinconada Pool.
Thank you very much. David Levinson, followed by Ann Protter.
My name is David Levinson, and I've been a continuous member of the Rinconada Masters since I moved to Palo Alto more than 40 years ago. And Carol McPherson has been our dedicated coach the entire time. Under her tutelage and that of retired coach Cindy Baxter, I have been a national Masters champion 8 times over the years. Now I am 68 years old, have retired from competition, and suffer from several age-related ailments. And I rely heavily on Rinconada Masters' highly structured but low-pressure workouts to maintain my health. Once again, we swimmers find ourselves compelled to take time out from our busy lives and attend a Parks and Rec Commission meeting to speak out concerning this recurring issue of the survival of the Rinconada Masters and lap swimming programs. Once again, our message is, leave our programs alone. Now we find that Tim Sheeper, under his pseudonym of Palo Alto Swim and Sport, is making his long-planned move to gain full control of the Rinconada Masters swim program and terminate the program as we know it. Moreover, he has the unmitigated gall to demand an administrative fee for this, which is reminiscent of the days when a gangster would shoot a man's wife and then force him to pay for the bullet. The Parks and Rec Commission needs to decide whether they hired Tim Sheeper to serve the swimmers of our Palo Alto programs, or whether the members of the commission believe that we swimmers exist to serve Tim Sheeper. I call on the Parks and Rec Commission, please do not abandon us swimmers, and especially do not abandon us while appealing to what President Reagan called the 9 most terrifying words in the English language. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help.
Thank you. Ann Lemons, followed by Carol Mapehouse.
Ann Protter?
Ann Protter, please.
Ann Protter. I'm Ann Protter. I've lived here since 1963. I am a Palo Alto resident. I'm talking to you, not writing, I did write. I'm talking to you for a slightly different reason. I have a son with special needs. He has mental health issues, and I have tried for many decades. He's almost 18. I've tried for many decades to teach him how to swim. I've tried private lessons. I've tried Rinconada swim lessons. I've tried lessons at the Y. We have a lake house up at Lake Almanor, and we have a sailboat. It's critical to me that he learns how to swim. In August, I enrolled him in Carol's class after trying to teach him at Rinconada again this summer, but it's peers there teaching, and he couldn't go be taught by a girl that he's going to high school with. So I put him in Carol's class, and this is magic. He's been now in there since the 1st of August, and he has learned 4 strokes. The other day, I saw him learning how to do a kick turn. She has taught him when nobody else has been able to teach him, and I've tried. I see her teaching other people how to swim as well. There's, I think, 6 or 7 people in her Swim for Fitness class. I don't see this program on the schedule in the future. I think it's a life skill, and I want my son to learn how to swim. He already has a goal of being on a swim team. He's excited about the program. He tells me he's grown an inch. He wants to be taller, and it's pretty amazing. I don't see anybody else being able to do this besides Carol. I also want to say I'm a lap swimmer. I've been swimming at Rinconada for decades. I'm not a part of the master's program because I kind of have to do my own thing. But I'm swimming there while he's taking the lesson, and I'm watching her. And she is pacing up and down the pool, telling these people what to do, stroke by stroke. I can't believe her dedication, and I honestly can't believe that we're even considering swapping her out just to make a couple more dollars.
Thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
I believe it's Carol McFain, followed by Stan Weiss.
Is that McPherson?
Is it? It's MACPH.
Is this different, Ann? Are the 2 Anns?
No, there was.
Yeah, you missed an Ann.
Did I miss an Ann?
It's McPherson. Is that correct?
Did I miss Ann Lemons?
Yeah. Oh,
You're next.
okay.
Thank you. No. You're here, please.
I'm okay.
Yes, please.
All right. I have some letters here that I'd like to give to the commission. Maybe you can give them to them. They couldn't be here tonight, but they wanted to voice their opinions. And this is also a booklet that shows all of our lifeguards and CPR swimmers who are qualified, and my resume. Okay. I'm Carol McPherson. I've lived in Palo Alto for over 46 years. I run the Rinconada Masters team. I'm a coach for 46 years. Cindy Baxter and myself founded this team under the Tom Osborne, who had the vision of the future for our team. We started with 15 swimmers in 1973 and graduated to 100 very shortly. We were the first Masters team along with San Mateo and De Anza. If you look at my resume, you can see that we have helped the community of swimming and also the put Palo Alto City on the map with all the swimming we have done worldwide. We have competed in different countries all over the world. Let me get back here, okay. Our team asked the city when we first started also to put heat in the dressing rooms, there wasn't any when we first started the team. We also paid for covers with the city. We also put lane lines in. We've had a swimmer that put some knobs on the wheels that you turn to get the covers off and on, because it was very hard. So we put a little knob on there, and so now it's much easier for the lifeguards and our team.
20 seconds, Carol.
Okay. I would like to see our team continue. I would like to see the contract continue that we've had. And also, we would prefer and would like to work with Team Shipper over this. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Somehow Ann knew she was next.
Hi, my name is Ann Lemonis, and I'm a Palo Alto resident and homeowner. I've been lap swimming at Rinconada Pool for the last 20 years, and my children learned how to swim there, as well as spending many happy hours playing in the pool. I now try to bring my granddaughter over there whenever she's visiting, and that's become harder to do because of the reduced recreational swim hours that the pool employs. Like this summer we went there and we stood in a line waiting for people to exit the pool so that we could go in, and we eventually just gave up because it was a hot day and we were probably going to wait an hour and a half or more to get in. So I'd like to see the recreational hours improved over there as well. I'm part of a large group of people who lap swim multiple times a week at Rinconada Pool. And I'm really hoping that you don't allow a change or reduction of hours for this valuable community and personal benefit. In addition, please be sure that the recreational swim hours are sufficient to cover all the members of our community that desire to use this public pool. Please be sure that the new 5-year contract for the pool, for Rinconada Pool, maintains it as a community asset as it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Stan Weiss, followed by David Coe.
Good evening. This is Stan Weiss. I've been swimming in this valley for over 60 years with virtually every master's program that's been around. The Rinconada Masters program, which I've been swimming at for over 10 years, is by far and away the best. What I'd really like to see is I'd like to see it the same. The 1-year contract that you had with Mr. Sheeper, if you just continued that for the next 5 years, it would probably eliminate a lot of the problems. The way it is structured now, Rinconada Masters would be eliminated and Mr. Sheeper would take over. I don't think that's necessary. I think we can just roll over the 1-year contract into the 5-year contract the way it is, and everybody would be pretty happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you, David Coe, followed by Timothy Groves.
My name is David Kuo. I'm a resident and a homeowner of Palo Alto. I've been jogging for many years, and 2 years ago my knees gave up, so I switched to swimming. So swimming is on my bucket list. I'm here because I'm very worried about the future of Palo Alto, especially in terms of the lap swimming that has been available to us. 2 points. I noticed that the contract is a 5-year contract. It's going to be a 5-year contract. I'm 75 years old. If we make a mistake, that mistake is going to be with us for 5 years, and that 5 years is a very long time. It's a very long time for me. Could be the rest of my life. So I'm quite concerned about that. I'm also concerned, in particular, that from the lack of willingness to accommodate to work with the master program. What are we going to anticipate in the future? How accommodating Mr. Sheeper is going to be. This is our pool. We pay for it with our tax dollar. We should control its destiny. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Timothy Groves, followed by Gwen Fisher.
My name is Timothy Groves. I'm currently a Palo Alto resident and a member of Rinconada Masters Swim Club. We support the existing contract and subcontract and abide by both of these willingly. Last week, Tim Sheeper informed us that he intends to unilaterally cancel our subcontract after the new year and reallocate the swim lanes to another, quotes, masters group of his own devising. This could effectively prevent the Rinconada Masters from using the Rinconada Pool facility, which we have done continuously and successfully since 1972. As one reason, he cites a lack of certified lifeguards and individuals certified in CPR and AED. This is incorrect. We have 3 lifeguards with valid and current Red Cross certification, and we have 14 swimmers with valid and current CPR AED certification. We meet our contractual obligation to have qualified supervision present and on duty at the pool. He further cites that Rinconada Masters failed to communicate with Team Sheeper. This is a misrepresentation. We are perfectly willing to communicate and have done so. In fact, no one in our group has ever seen Tim Sheeper at the pool during our designated hours. We therefore have 2 requests: that the Parks and Rec Commission improve and increase its oversight of contractor Team Sheeper to prevent what threatens to become a devastating and unfair situation for Rinconada Masters. Second, that our existing subcontract between Masters and Team Sheeper be renewable with appropriate modification for allocation of swim lanes effective January 1st. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Gwen Fisher, followed by Jack Lorton.
Hi, my name is Gwen Fisher, and I'm a Palo Alto resident and taxpayer. And thank you all for coming, allowing us to come speak tonight. As a longtime taxpayer and resident, I'm quite disturbed and quite angry at the handling of and the management of our town pool. Prior to Tim's 18-month trial contract, our community pool was a welcoming place for all types of swimmers and all pool users. Lap swimmers, master swimmers, family and recreation swimmers, and PASA all enjoyed our pool and the accessibility that it offered. There was a place and space for everyone who wanted to use it. Over the past year, Tim has quickly and systematically reduced the community's access to the pool, and he most recently denied a subcontract to the long-running 40-plus years Community Masters program by Carol McPherson, most likely in favor of bringing in his own master's program to our town pool. For the past 18 months, Tim's privatized operations have been conducted with a complete lack of transparency and communication. The degree of secrecy and disregard for community involvement and input between Parks and Rec and Team Sheeper is so high that most of us don't even know who to go to or who to talk to regarding a maintenance or locker room issue. Over the span of less than 18 months, Tim has completely removed the community from our community pool. It is my belief and opinion that Tim has an agenda solely focused on his own pursuits and goals without regard to the Palo Alto swimming community. If he is granted the 5-year contract that he has proposed, I believe he will turn our community pool into a peak performance aquatic center dedicated to the exclusive use of high-level master swimmers and those training for triathlons, as he has done with the Burgess Park pool. I am asking you to examine Tim's proposal from the lap swimmer's perspective or a common pool use user like me. People who want to use the space of 14 lanes and the freedom to swim according to our needs, the moms who want to come and enjoy the pool during the weekday at any time with their kids. Tim has taken the community out of our community pool. You need to put it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Lorton will be followed by Fran DeBost.
Can you hear me? That's the important thing. I am Jack Lorton. I am not a resident of Palo Alto. They wouldn't let me in. I can't help that. I don't know how long I've been swimming with Rinconada. All I can tell you, it's probably over about 30 years. All I can tell you is when I started, I had hair. And secondly, I was good looking. So you can decide on how long that's been. One thing I want to bring up, that I have been swimming many years with Rinconada. Currently, I'm doing about 12,000 yards a week. Now, that's not as much as other people do, but it's a lot for me, believe me, 12,000 yards a week. And it helps with my health. I have a hip that's not as good as it used to be, and that definitely helps with that. It's a great group of people to be with. It always has been at the Rinconada Masters in the pool. Secondly, I think this is the most important thing. One of these problems that Tim seemed to think was that we weren't communicating. Well, it takes two. It seems to me, I think you gentlemen would agree with this, it takes two parties to communicate. And if you call this communication that never any mention in the past months that he was thinking of terminating our contract. He tells Carol on the 16th of October. Now, that I don't know about you, but it infuriates me. He says, you're not communicating with me. Well, I say he did not communicate with us. That's that. And one other thing, I have a feeling, you say he's going to bring a Masters team. Is it possible that the Masters team he brings over will be his Masters team? In other words, the point being that he's not only making money running the operation for you gentlemen, but he's also making money, or he will be making money off of this team, bringing it over to the Rinconada pool. And I just don't think that's a fair situation. I can't say that's what's going to happen, but it has crossed my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fran DeBose, followed by Marilyn Burrito.
Good evening. My name is Fran DeBose, and I am a Palo Alto resident. Unless many of my teammates tonight, I'm a newbie in the team. I just joined the Rinconada Masters program a year ago. And I really want to tell you that I found an amazing team. And actually, it was recommended by many people in Palo Alto. So this is a program that's well known. And I found a very united and welcoming team. And I know that some of these, my teammates are shy and won't talk, even if they don't have the accent I have. But I would like to ask them to all stand up so that you can see. So all swimmers, can you stand up? So you can see how important it is for all our swimmers. And we have two great coaches. It goes from very rigorous practices to progressive workout that I need because I'm really starting, but I've made tremendous progress. Terry and Carol know everyone. I already made friends. This is a wonderful program, and I think it's really, really key for the community. So please save our team. And I'm really hopeful that we can solve the situation. Everybody in the team is ready to work with Mr. Shipper. I'm always optimistic, and I really trust that we can find a solution for everyone. So, thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Marilyn? And Marilyn would be the last speaker of all the speaker cards I have, unless...
I'm Marilyn Baradell, and I've lived in Palo Alto since 1969, and I've been a lap swimmer at Rinconada about 46 years. I was a little while with the Masters in the beginning, and I loved it, but it didn't work out with my work schedule and so forth. Anyway, there's just a couple of things that I guess I would like to add. The stakeholders were supposed to be invited to participate in knowing at least about how this contract was being developed, and a lot of us went to the March 6th meeting where Stephanie Douglas said, we'll meet again and we will get the stakeholders information and we'll have the lap swimmers in and the masters and different people in. And she had our email addresses and so forth, and neither I nor any of my co-lap swimmers that I know ever received any kind of an invitation to attend any other meeting, and the first thing we've known about the contract is just that it's just come out and here's what it's about. We had input into the first year's contract, and we were quite specific as lap swimming community and I'm not speaking for others, but I'm kind of summarizing what I hear, that our reasonable needs were for the full pool of the 14 laps, at least for the morning swims and at other lap swimming times when there's a large number of lap swimmers that are expected. We originally objected to the Sheeper schedule that was proposed because he wanted to have lap swimmers and master swimmers divide the pool at the same time, especially during these busy hours. And the schedule of the pool lanes was, and I think is, for me, and it certainly, I think for a lot of others, is of utmost importance to us. We heard tonight that maybe they are going to expand lap swim hours, but those expanded hours don't work for an awful lot of the people in this program. Many of them are working people that come at 6:30 in the morning and then they're off to work. I come later in the day, and but we retired people also do a lot of other things in the day, and we want to get going with our aerobic exercise. The early morning is the only time a lot of us have to devote to our swimming fitness. So the fact that these other times have been added are not going to be helpful to many of us. And sometimes I'm thinking there are maybe 28 or more lap swimmers in the pool many times, and if it went down to 7 and 7 between the two groups, there'd be 4 people in a lane. It doesn't work out terribly well. The lap swimmers are not casual swimmers. They're mostly people that are doing this for fitness, but we don't all have the same styles, or we don't have the same needs. Sometimes people are recovering from injury, and it's good that our community has a place that people can go to walk laps and do that kind of thing. So I hope we can work this out.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And the two last cards that were just turned in, John Beely, followed by Kublai Demir.
Thank you. I'm John Beely. I used to be a resident of Palo Alto. My 2 kids graduated from Palo Alto High School, but I live in the area. I live in Mountain View, and I've continued to stay with Rinconada Masters since I joined it in the late 90s. My point, I think, is that you need to understand that not all master swimmers clubs are the same, and that's really what we are. We're not a team per se. We're a club. We're a collection of people that have different goals, different requirements, but we have a common coach and we have a common sport, swimming, that we all participate in. And there's some clubs that are very competitive oriented. There are a lot of people that have come to Rinconada and left and go to Stanford because they have a different outlook there. They have a different expectation. We are an everyman person club, and that this is how Rinconada is constituted. Sheeper may have other goals. He may have a performance or a higher requirements for either entering the Rinconada or the Masters program or to participate in it. I prefer the low-key attitude of Rinconada Masters, and I hope that you continue to allow it to participate the way it has before. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Kublai.
Good evening. My name is Kublai Demir. I'm a Palo Alto resident. I have been a Palo Alto resident since 5 years, and I have been swimming as a lap swimmer at Rinconada Pool since 9 months. I just want to stress out the availability of the pools, lanes for the lap swimmers. If you look at the Menlo Park swimming pool schedule for the prime time hours, most of the, very few of the lanes are allocated for lap swimming. I just want to stress out that the proposed schedule, how plastic it will be in the future, and there should be enough lanes allocated for the lap swimmers. Thank you.
Thank you. And absolutely the last card would be Sean Sasse.
Hi, my name is Sean Sasse. I am not a Palo Alto resident. I'm a Menlo Park resident.
but I am a master swimmer at Rinconada by my own choosing. What's been presented tonight by the Recreation Community Services Department differs significantly from what the current contract is that we have. It has negative implications for our swimming community, and we're concerned. The Community Masters team of 40-plus years has been denied a renewed subcontract by Tim Sheeper. A new Masters team is supposed to be administered by Tim Sheeper, and it's to be the replacement. And lap swimmers have no assurance of their dedicated pool time during prime morning and evening hours. In fact, we saw only one schedule for January, and it was tentative. I'm not entirely sure what I saw, but I didn't notice that there were many lap swimming hours in the evening. It was given over to some other discipline. We've watched Menlo Park privatize their community pool to Tim Sheeper. It's no longer a community pool. It looks like Tim Sheeper's pool. On weekdays, prime morning, noon, and evening hours are given to Tim Sheeper and his youth swim team. Lap swimmers are allotted anywhere from 0 to 20% of lane space during these prime times. Weekends, the pool closes early, and prime morning hours are again primarily for Team Sheeper. This is not what the Rinconada pool community is about. We're a community of independent groups that have coexisted for decades. We value designated prime pool time for lap swimmers. We value a masters team that serves a unique segment of master swimmers in a way that other local teams do not. We have PASA, a prize youth swimming team. We have an incredible recreational facility that is for the community for long summer weekdays and weekends.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark Sloan.
I'm a Palo Alto resident, homeowner. I graduated from Palo Alto High School, and I've not swam in high school. I learned how to swim, and I started masters here at Rinconada, and it's been really rewarding, and I think it's an excellent program. I don't think it's fair to privatize and say you're going to bring in a different master's program when it's been here for 45 years. And I think it's important to make that known. Thanks.
Thank you. We've now had all of the public comments. I'd like to turn it over to the commission to comment and ask questions. I think we'll just do one round that basically you can comment and question at the same time. Before we start that, I believe, and I'd like to understand from the group, Carol clearly is your head coach, and there's some other people here that are sub-coaches or assistant coaches or whatever. I heard several times that this is a club. Is there any other structure to the club? Is there a treasurer, a president, a social convener, or anything like that? Can somebody speak to that?
Yes, we have an advisory.
Can you come to the microphone?
Yes, we have an advisory board. We have a president of the club who's been the president for 20 years. We have a treasurer who's here tonight. And we all decide what's best for the team. I'm not the only one that decides. I go to my board and we talk about things and decide together.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll start with you, Keith.
So I guess this is for Jasmine. I'm confused here. It seems like a really bad idea. Why are we doing it?
That's a good question, since we've had so many comments. As I said, and I'll just kind of put the slide back here, we actually have had quite a lot of positive comments that have come back about the use of the pool. There's 10,000 more lap swim and open swim visitors that we had year over year. We doubled the number of swim lessons. We had 350 families participating in summer swim camps. And we have heard from feedback from members of PASA, lap swimmers, recreational swim users, and lap swimmers that they've been happy with this program. Administratively, we've also been very happy to work with Team Sheeper over the last year. They've been very easy to communicate with. We're having daily check-ins, very flexible around the city's needs, which sometimes create sometimes the city can be difficult to work with, and they've been willing to partner with us. They were the only respondent to our RFP, and we reviewed them looking at safety, which is absolutely essential to all of our programs, city and customer costs, quality of service and customer satisfaction, and diversity of programming and accessibility. So they really were able, we feel strongly that they are going to be able to deliver on all of these elements. And it is our goal to have a long-term partner that we feel is going to be collaborative, willing to give and take with the city. One of the elements that I think made this somewhat unattractive to other potential aquatics vendors, I can't say for certain, but is that we have insisted that the city can retain that oversight of the pool schedule and the pool pricing. This will not be the same as what Menlo Park offers. This will be very much the same as what the city of Palo Alto offers. So the biggest drawback is that there is a change in oversight of the master's program, but the master's programming is not going away. Everyone who's a master's swimmer is absolutely welcome to continue to be a master's swimmer, and I know that it doesn't necessarily feel the same to every participant, but there is still master's programming at the same times and at almost exactly the same prices.
But as a city, I don't see our incentive for getting rid of the current master's program. It doesn't seem to be broken. Why are we trying to replace the master program?
So we received one RFP response, and that was from Team Sheeper. Team Sheeper did already develop a subcontract with the PASA, but we don't have the ability to require Team Sheeper to subcontract with any particular vendors. So we really can't force something like that. The other element.
Please.
The other element is we felt satisfied with the response. There was enough positives here, and we did hear from Team Sheeper what their concerns were around continuing with the subcontract, that we felt comfortable moving forward with this.
We have no ability to require him to continue? I mean, last year we did that.
We have the ability to ask him to continue a master's program. We don't have the ability to insist that he subcontract with this particular group. That's the issue. Sure.
When we do an RFP, do we have the ability to structure an RFP to make requirements of what we think are important? So for example, could we say, part of this RFP is we're going to keep a certain existing groups as part of the pool, or, as we go forward with our community, I do foresee even more public-private partnerships, just with how city budgets are and how staffing problems are, and that's actually what led to this public-private partnership with the pool. But as we do RFPs, are there ways to figure out what are important community assets and make those part of an RFP? And if so, was there anything within this RFP that talked about different community assets that were existing?
We In terms of making sure we have all the programming that we think is important, yes, we can put that in the RFP, and we did. We also invited all of our pool users, PASA, Rinconada Masters, and Team Sheeper, along with any other aquatics vendors that we could reach out to respond to the RFP, really to make sure that any group that wants to be in the pool knows that this is the process to take to put their bid in to continue.
Was that to put a bid in to manage the entire pool, or to put a bid in to carve out 3 hours a morning for an existing master's group? We asked for a total aquatics oversight. It's when we had discussions with different vendors, we made it clear that the response can be anything, but the ideal is a total aquatics oversight. So combining programs is an option that we encouraged as well. So a partnership. What do you mean by combining programs?
So, for example, there could be two vendors that come together with one response, so that there's one vendor providing this service and another for that service, for example.
So right now, we have one RFP response. Do we have to accept that? Can we put another RFP out? Can we structure it differently to allow us to contract directly with PASA and with a master's program, so the city makes the decision instead of a private company?
So we do have the option not to proceed. As I said, staff feels strongly that this is a good choice to proceed. As I think it was indicated, we're really focused on these elements around safety and quality of service and customer satisfaction. We're very confident that this is what Team Sheeper will be able to provide moving forward. The option would be, to kind of throw this out, as I would assume, we may have to suspend all aquatics programming if we don't have any oversight of the pool, and try to come up with a new plan. So it's not ideal to kind of walk away from this. We would certainly do that if it seemed like this was going to cause problems, because our goal is to improve aquatics programming.
Have you talked to Sheeper about this? What's his rationale for changing the master's program?
So Sheeper provided several concerns around the way that the master's program oversight currently is, which he did express to the Rinconada Masters earlier this month. The one that caused the issue that we are especially focused on is safety, pool safety, where our goal is that every program at the pool is as safe as can possibly be. And they had concerns that we felt were valid.
This is the lifeguard issue?
The lifeguard issue being the main one.
I'm going to pass it to Ryan.
So could you say a little bit more about that? I'm sorry that I'm not up to speed on the lifeguard issue, but I mean, I appreciate the concern is that they may not have enough lifeguards, but is that the city's rationale?
That's their rationale for not wanting to partner. So they are liable for anything that happens at the pool. They're the contractor. Any subcontractor, if something goes wrong, Team Sheeper is liable as well as the city. So they're focused on safety, as is the city. The city has went through a complete safety review by an independent aquatics professional earlier this year to make sure that we were doing everything we could in best practices, and they identified that the requirement to have 2 lifeguards around the pool, at least one of them being on the deck, it's possible to have one in the pool as well, is something that we need to do in all of our programs. And we have that requirement in all of our, in Tim Sheeper's contract, and it's also in the subcontracts with PASA and the Rinconada Masters. But that has not always occurred during the Rinconada Masters programs. And it's a serious enough concern for us that we felt like this was justified for Team Sheeper to move forward with overseeing the master's program.
Sure, it seems like a fixable problem. I mean, I think that you could even contract with Team Sheeper to have lifeguards there, right? That's largely why he's there in the first place. So let me just raise a couple of practical concerns that I have. One is that I don't believe, given the community feedback tonight, and that's been received via writing as well, that this will have a chance before the city council. So I think that something has to change. Otherwise, this is not going to move forward in the way that staff has proposed it. And that's going to be problematic because you're going to be a month farther behind the ball. So I would really hope that there'd be some solution between Team Sheeper, Rinconada Masters, and the city, and I hope that the city could kind of broker that solution. I'm going to make one other comment, which is that I have a broader concern about the lack of competitive bidding here. And I know that you probably share that concern, but we're in a difficult position where we are entirely reliant upon Team Sheeper to keep our town pool open, right? And that's a difficult position to be in. And so I think we need to find some way, and I don't know if it goes back to the RFP process or something else, but we need to find some way that we're not so entirely reliant upon one organization that we have little control over, frankly. Relatedly, I am wondering whether or not a 5-year contract under those circumstances is really the right way to go, or whether we should have a shorter term contract that is 2 or 3 years perhaps. I don't know if you have thoughts on any of those questions.
I do share your concerns about vendors and making sure we're getting competitive bids. I think this is an area where there are not a ton of vendors in general, and so that makes it a little bit hard. We did our best to reach out to every vendor we could think of to try to solicit more than one bid. With regard to the 5-year contract, we did think a lot about that, and we've put a termination clause in for no reason. We can terminate with 90 days. And the thinking is that if things are going right, it's a very time-consuming process to do a whole, RFP and new contract every couple of years. It would be nice to have some continuity. It also allows a vendor to feel more like they are a part of the community and they want to get to know all of the customers and want to make sure that they are satisfying the existing pool customers more because they know they're going to be in it for a long term. So I do feel like a 5-year term is a good idea in this case. Was there more? I'm sorry.
That was essentially it.
Okay.
And I know that there's probably others who want to ask a few questions as well, so I'll pass the baton. Let me say also thank you. I know that this is largely a thankless job that you have, so appreciate the fact that you are so committed to this. I know you are a Palo Alto resident too, so these are all your neighbors who are speaking tonight. I know you probably bear that in a different way than perhaps others who may not be Palo Alto residents. So thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff, do you have anything else you want to add?
I just want to get a little clarification on the administrative fee and the thoughts behind that. Did he do the administrative fee last year when he first took over, or no?
No, he
Okay.
had proposed, but we requested not to do that then.
And that administrative fee is counted as part of total revenue?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's not something that he would just add to additional costs, or I was just curious about what, or maybe you don't even know why he needs an administrative fee as opposed to whether it's $1 or $2 more for each service, or?
Yeah, it's, their costs continue to grow. They have, luckily, they have the ability to quickly change the rates that they're paying lifeguards, so unlike the city, so that they can actually maintain adequate staffing levels, and their costs are growing, but at the same time, they don't have a lot of flexibility to raise monthly fees without upsetting people, and so this is effectively just a way to try to increase.
Sure, but it's still a increase in monthly fees.
The
essentially.
administrative,
I mean,
if you average it out over 12 years, or 12 months. It is.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I recognize that.
David?
I agree 100% with what Ryan said about if one of the only things that Team Sheeper's worried about is lifeguards, they should just get some lifeguards and move on. The second thing I'd like to say is that using the golf course as an example, OB runs the golf course, and there are many clubs that have regular use of the golf course, and OB's responsibility is to maintain the golf course for them to use. And I don't see any reason why. I think that this swim club is a city treasure. It has a national reputation. It has a long history, and why it goes away just because somebody's managing the pool, especially if it's a great group of people with a lot of camaraderie and they do great events together. Why does that go away? I just don't understand that. So I think that it's a layer on top of the running of the pool. Mm-hmm. And if you need a couple lifeguards, get a couple of lifeguards and move on. And then, and everybody here, they're not going to turn away anybody from that pool. So everybody here can join it, and they can still be their club. The second thing I wanted to mention is that this RFP process really has some issues. Put up the schedule real quickly. Yeah, stop. So what you're telling me is that the proposals were due August 21st. On that day, did Team Sheeper have in there about Master Swim? What is this about October 16th? Why did we wait 2 months from August 21st to find out this stuff? And why isn't there an RFP from, did they know that there needed to be an RFP just for Master Swim, or that it had to be part of an overall structure, going back to what Ryan said? I don't understand that part of the RFP process, and I don't want it to negate the RFP process, but it seems fishy. And when you go to the city council, it's going to look fishy. So what do we do?
Thank you. So when we first recognized that the master's program operations were likely to be different, that was not August 21st, because we didn't actually get it released from the purchasing division for several days. But it was in the beginning of September, the week of September 11th, when we started to do our review of the response and try to look through all the elements that Team Sheeper had proposed. As soon as we saw that it looked like the Rinconada Masters was not mentioned as a subcontractor, we had had a suspicion that there could be something that we need to we need to understand. But at the same time, it was not the city who could tell Rinconada Masters anything about their contract with Team Sheeper. So, and the RFP does not say Rinconada Masters will not be in the pool. It just proposes the same schedule and pricing. So we reached out to Carol, the head coach, to try to set up a meeting as soon as possible. The meeting was actually towards the end of September, but we asked, we didn't see a Rinconada Masters RFP response. You know, what's going on? We'd really urge you to, to reach out to Tim Sheeper, the only RFP respondent, to find out what's going on. And it's my understanding that that meeting did take place on October 16th. I'm not sure why there was such a long delay from the 28th, but that is our understanding. So.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're allowed to do that so late in the process, to say that. And so I'd like you to revisit that. I don't know if that's, you have a very strict process, and that doesn't seem like it's part of the strict process.
It's, yeah,
It's the blindsiding that I find disturbing.
I would say, you know, we reached out to all of our pool users to participate in this RFP, and I would really hope that every pool user would be in communication, you know, as early as possible. It's unfortunate that that didn't happen in this case.
Yeah,
If I could add just what you said, like how this is like the golf course, I think that's very apt. Team Sheeper is providing administrative oversight, but he doesn't have a group of master swimmers that are waiting somewhere.
exactly. That's exactly my point. There's no reason why the name Palo Alto Rinconada Master Swim Club team name has to go away. And there doesn't seem to be a reason why these members can't swim in that pool. So because the city has oversight on running the pool, if they need some more lifeguards or some other safety issues, they should deal with it. And I know that this club has had a long history, but regulations change, and they need to change with it. And it doesn't mean that the club has to go away. I just can't accept that. So if you have stricter requirements, safety requirements, then you have to meet them. And every other sport that's played in our city has the same restrictions. That's all.
Thank you. I'm certainly hearing lots of concerns from Rinconada Masters about their program going away, and it's been certainly a valued program within the community for many years. I'm also hearing from lap swimmers issues regarding access hours, and I don't think the commission has addressed that, and I want to spend some time on that as well. I'm also hearing from staff, who I have a lot of respect for as well, that even considering the long-standing history of Rinconada Masters, they're recommending an option which effectively doesn't include them. And so I'm trying to understand how did we get here? What are we missing? So I have a number of questions that maybe we'll shed some light. So regarding the RFP, there's been discussions about the preference for a full response or a complete package versus a partial RFP. Could you elaborate more on that? You said that it is possible to respond in a partial manner. Is that acceptable?
It is, but it's not going to be as attractive of a response when it's being evaluated.
And so was Rinconada Masters engaged, and did you have communications with them encouraging them to make a response?
Yes, during the RFP process, we cannot do that. But beforehand, in the spring, we met with Rinconada Masters, PASA, and Team Sheeper each individually to talk to them about the RFP process and encourage all of them to respond.
And so if I understand correctly, the ideal arrangement would be the primary contractor working with the subcontractors and coming together with a single unified response to the RFP. And effectively, that's what Team Sheeper has done with PASA, but Rinconada Masters was not included.
Right.
And so I understand the city is limited to what role they can play to push that and pursue that. And so if speculatively, if Rinconada Masters had made a partial RFP response, would we potentially be in a different position now?
I haven't asked our city attorney's office, but it is possible.
Okay. And the next question, just kind of clarifying where we are at this point. I appreciate what Ryan has said. We're in the city is we're all of us are in a difficult position here with a single response to the RFP. And I appreciate that you did outreach and would have loved to get more bids, and this is what we have. So given this, I guess one option is we can accept the RFP as it is. We can reject it outright, and then the city must resume management of Rinconada Pool, and that sounds problematic and a timing issue as well. Is it possible to reopen the RFP? Is that an option, or not given our timing?
Yeah.
That is not an option. And so then then the question is, what type of negotiation is possible? Can we it sounds like we cannot specifically require Team Sheeper to have a contract with Rinconada Masters.
Just like, I mean, you know, a construction contract that the city enters into, there's lots of subcontractors and maybe even subs on subs. And this contract actually doesn't say anything about whether or not a master's program must be or could be in the future subcontracted. So all this requires them to do is provide a master's program, whether it's through their own service or a subcontract is up to them.
Okay, thank you. So we're basically somewhere between a rock and a hard place. And so we have one contract option, and for whatever reason, the primary contractor doesn't want to work with the subcontractor. We have a community, an adoring community that loves this program and desperately wants to maintain it. We have a city that has to manage a pool, and for reasons well stated, we're not in a position to manage it ourselves, and so we're looking for third-party management, and we're trying to figure out how do we meet. So can you clarify more the three reasons? Can you elaborate on the three reasons that Team Sheeper expressed why they did not want to proceed with Rinconada Masters? I think it would be helpful for the commission to understand that better. I'm hearing safety is one, and so lifeguarding is part of the safety issue.
Lifeguarding's part of it.
Are there other components of the safety issue?
There's been some other issues that they've brought to our attention over the course of the, I think someone said 15 months. Sorry, my math is bad. As well, but some of those have been addressed. The lifeguarding is the main safety issue that continues, and I think one of the hesitations that Team Sheeper has with just entering a new contract that says, hey, yes, we will have lifeguards, is that this is already in the contract and it's not being met. So if there's a new contract with a mandate for lifeguards, Tim Sheeper doesn't have confidence, I think, that element will be met. You know, it's been in there, it's been in place, and he's attempted to address it for several months.
So can you quantify the transgressions which have occurred in the past so we can better understand the magnitude of this? It's hard, on the surface, this sounds like a very solvable problem, but I'm hearing maybe it's not.
So all of our programs are required to have two My understanding is that the Rinconada Masters have asked if they could certify their own participants as lifeguards in order to not have to pay, because it is a relatively small pool or small program, and this puts a cost burden on them to pay for outside lifeguards. So this was something that the city and Team Sheeper believed was workable, but since we have kind of pressed the request to make sure we can see all the lifeguard certifications and see the schedule, that there are, in fact, volunteer lifeguards in every single hour of programming, we haven't seen that. And that's been a request that the city and Team Sheeper has made that's outstanding since July. And we've indicated just how important it is for the pool to be safe at all times. We need to know that there are lifeguards there at all times when Rinconada Masters is swimming. This is actually for their own safety. The other elements that Team Sheeper provided were service to the community and respect for all the programs that are on site.
I'm sorry, this service and
Service to the community and respect for all programs that are on site.
And what does service to the community mean? I'm not.
So over time, the Rinconada Masters program has dropped in size. They've been much larger in the past, and it's been an issue that the city has has encouraged that we get more. We really want to see this pool getting used as much as possible. When we look and see 10 or 12 kids in a lane during passes practices, honestly, it makes me smile that there's so many people, so many kids that are in the pool at that time. That's something that we want to see with the Masters, and something that I think Tim is wanting to see with the Masters program as well. So that was...
Okay, so essentially this is enrollment and usage.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the typical lane usage for Rinconada Masters? How many people per lane?
I'm sure that the Rinconada Masters would probably want to speak to that. I only know kind of anecdotes from hearing from Team Sheeper, or when I pop over occasionally to look. I know that in the past it's been often one person in a lane at a time, which is very nice for one person, but it's not a lot of usage.
And can you go back to the schedule slide? When Rinconada Masters has the pool, is it exclusive use of the pool, or is it shared? I thought there was some lap swimming along with the Masters.
Yeah, so this, you know what? I actually have a few slides that I added just in case we wanted to talk about the current schedule.
Okay, so there is exclusive use right now. I was trying to understand.
That's
So in these time periods, then Rinconada Masters has exclusive responsibility for lifeguards.
You know what? Ignore those. Those are actually not the current rate. So I was just trying to pull things together. This is Rinconada Masters pool schedule now. And I'm sorry that it's not a grid like the others, but there are shared times. The exclusive use for the Masters is in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I believe I think Saturday, Sunday might also be exclusive use, and Tuesday, Thursday is shared.
Okay, and so getting back to the lifeguards.
Yeah.
So the city requirements to Team Sheeper are 2 lifeguards must be on duty is this for the main pool or for both pools?
It's for each pool, so if both pools are open, then
Okay, 2 lifeguards per pool.
Yeah.
And so the compromise with Rinconada Masters is they can have certified lifeguards who are actually swimming, but they're not monitoring the pool, but they're considered the lifeguard for the pool?
You have to have at least one on deck, and then
Okay.
one of the 2 could be in the water.
Okay, so the requirement is 1 on deck, and then the compromise is for the second person to be someone in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And then the issue that the city has and Team Sheeper has, that there's concerns that there's times when there's only one lifeguard and not two.
Or not lifeguards, just certified coaches.
So are there times when there is no on-the-deck lifeguard?
That's my understanding, yeah.
And how often has this
Perhaps I'm
happened?
wrong. Sorry. Enough that it's been brought to our attention multiple times, and we have tried to rectify this by calling meetings and sending emails to push for these schedules so that the city and Team Sheeper has assurance that there are always 2 lifeguards.
Not trying to probe like a lawyer or something, but like dozens of times, or I'm just trying to understand the magnitude of the problem.
So far, we have not seen a schedule that gives assurance that any of the exclusive usage times have 2 lifeguards.
I'm sorry, could you?
So far, the city has not seen a schedule that gives assurance that there's always 2 lifeguards. Not at all. So I can't say we have seen anything.
It's Lindsay, right?
Carol.
Carol,
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Why don't you comment?
We just handed in a yellow booklet to you that has all the lifeguards that we have. We have always had at least 1 lifeguard on the deck, sometimes one in the water, not on the deck. The only time she is talking about is the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday sometimes, and Sunday. All the other ones are covered with 2 lifeguards. The lap swimming does not always have 2 lifeguards. They have 1. He's a lap swimmer, he just told me that. So they do not always have them either. But to say that we never had any lifeguard on the deck is incorrect, very incorrect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a lap swimmer too, and I've never seen more than 1 lifeguard on the deck except for during the summer.
Thank you. I'm sorry, no, this is not an open, it's not an open forum. Everybody had the chance to.
I can address that lifeguard issue, and I have personal experience.
I think we've had an answer. I respect Carol's answer.
I'll say it real quick. A year and a half ago, I had a cardiac arrest in the pool, and I was saved by the lifeguard on deck and the people who took care of me. And a year and a half, between that year and a half, I went back and I took the lifeguard training, and I've been there, and we've never in a year and a half not had at least 1 person on deck and 1 person in the pool. So I know what I'm talking about because I'm alive today because Carol did a good job and everybody in the pool did a good job.
Thank you.
So the city has not seen a schedule that provides that assurance that there are 2 lifeguards. And actually that cardiac arrest, the lifeguard that joined in to help was actually a Team Sheeper lifeguard that was performing a swim lesson in the other pool. So they were able to come over and help save someone's life.
So has there been any kind of a spot check audit where someone's gone out to the pool and checked to see if there's lifeguards? And have there been cases where there haven't been sufficient lifeguards?
We've asked Team Sheeper to do that, and it was in the safety review that we paid for earlier this year to do that.
Okay, and then I just want to give the third issue that Team Sheeper raised was respect.
Yes, so it's our understanding that there's been some not always a respectful environment created between the different groups. But I really don't want this to just be a negative focus. We really actually do have a great opportunity to have a wonderful pool, that is going to meet the needs of our different pool users. We have only 1 lap swimming pool, in the city, and I know that is why there are so many concerned residents coming out to make sure that the pool is not degraded, and that is our goal. Our goal is honestly to have a community serving pool that meets the needs of all of our users and does so in a way that's safe that's financially sustainable, and that what we're getting is the ability to greatly expand programming, expand hours at a lower cost than when we did it in-house. We have a lot of assurance that we get that moving forward in this contract, and everyone who's in the pool gets to stay in the pool.
Right. Well, thank you for the extra insights. And I wanted to touch base on the lap swimmer hours as well. So what I'm hearing from the community is in the transition to Team Sheeper, there was a reduction in primetime lap swim hours for the community?
No, so there was a strong concern when we initially were developing the contract with Team Sheeper that took effect in August to make sure that we did not kind of go into a strongly shared usage pool schedule. Team Sheeper's program at Burgess has a lot more shared times so that there's overlap.
Right, I remember those discussions coming before the commission in the past, and it sounded like the general consensus was folks preferred to have their own block where they had all the lanes and they can spread out and and make do. And so in the January schedule that you put up, it looked like there were no exclusive morning, or it's up right now. So masters and lap swimming would be sharing time every morning?
No. So right now, the masters have exclusive use Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think it's until 8:30, and there's no lap swimming on Monday, Wednesday, Friday until after that. So the proposal, because their proposal was to continue to offer the block of lap swim from 6 to, well, it's starting at 6 a.m. Tuesday, Thursday, that they have had exclusive use for lap swim, but extend, offer more additional lap swim hours on Monday, Wednesday, Friday that don't currently exist.
So if I'm reading this correctly, there's 14 lanes at the pool, and from 6 to 8 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Masters has half the pool and lap swim has half the pool.
Right, that's the proposal from exclusively used by Masters during those hours.
So currently it's exclusive use for Masters, and this would get cut back to half the pool.
Right.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand, do you understand what the concerns raised by the lap swimmers were about lack of primetime slots? Is that I think primetime morning and evening, before work and after work?
So this January schedule does have, I believe there were 3 evenings that were open until 8 p.m. Last January. This is 2. It is something that we discussed with Team Sheeper when they sent this, that we would like to get back to where we were, offering evening hours, lap swim, on at least 3 weeknights. That is their goal as well. And in the morning, there's no reduction for lap swim. If you look at the rest of the schedule, it's all additions.
Okay, and getting back to what you've said before, the city does maintain ultimate control of the schedule, so even with the constraints of the RFP, we can control that. Okay, I'm ready to pass on to Don. Thank you.
So I'm going to try and wrap this up. Obviously, what we're dealing in is a very scarce and very valuable resource. This is the same as the scarce resource for pickleball, the scarce resource for soccer. In the city, our side has the energy that our citizens have, then it ends up being a scarce resource issue in every case, including scarce resource relative to the funding. Many of these problems could be solved if we had the $60 million that I think we need in the Parks and Rec area for the various things we have. I think this has been This is continuing to be a learning process. I think some of the commissioners brought up very good points relative to the RFP process and the RFP status. I am totally sympathetic to the fact that you reached out to everybody and reached out again, and we only ended up with one. In terms of the status, I think that we understand that stopping it now or starting over again are not possible. I think there was also an issue of how much outreach and transparency there was. If I had to pick on something, I would say the transparency was probably the issue. I think you are in a negotiation process now. I am going to be confident that based on all of the input that we received tonight and the conversations we have here, our negotiation might be different than it might have been 24 hours ago or whatever. So we'll see what we can do with that. The discussion point tonight, the agenda item was about the pricing. I don't know that you got approval or disapproval. This was a discussion. We are not here to vote. I think the questions we asked constitute recommendations. But I don't think there was major objection to the pricing structure that you were talking about. And bottom line, I would say that an issue that we have that's associated with the scarce and valuable resources, bottom line, I wrote down trust. Somehow what we've done is broken the trust. And I think that I don't know that the commission's in a point to do anything about that except to use that word with all capital letters and say that that's what I would ask the community to focus on, as well as staff to focus on, that we have to find a way together. It can't be just simply staff fix it. That doesn't work. We're dealing in a scarce resource in a difficult situation. And I would say that message of trust needs to be passed on to our contractor. I think that's the issue that needs to be built here in some way. And in terms of the contract, by the way, I would say that yes, it's a 5-year contract, but I know that the way that we would manage that contract, it's going to be a 1-year contract, renewable 5 times, because every year we will have the opportunity as a commission to ask you to come and give us a status report, and that status report we can then have conversations about whether that contract should be continued. In the short term, I kind of doubt that this is going to make everybody in the audience happy, but at least everybody should know, by the way, that this has been recorded tonight, number one. Everybody should know that there will be a transcript of this. So this isn't just hearsay that will be presented to any other staff members and negotiators that might be involved in this process. And it won't be hearsay. You should have seen there was 52 people at the meeting, and that's all that gets presented to anybody else, including Schiefer. He will be able to see the total transcript and view this, and I think that that's important. I can only at this point, on behalf of my fellow commissioners, I hope, thank everybody who came and presented, and for the civility of the process. This is the kind of democracy that is important. It's the kind of civility that's important, and I thank you very much for attending, for spending your time. Somebody commented about, spending your time at night here. It's not a lot of fun. Oh, come on, sure it is. And thank you again. And thank you. I think, let me, so Peter, you're here to talk about the master plan status?
Yes.
It's 9 o'clock at night, and I know that you've waited this long. I'm going to preempt some conversation here and ask my fellow commission members if they would go along with me. I appreciate very much the fact that we've put this on the list. I appreciate very much the detail that somebody has gone through. I don't know whether, Peter, that's you or if we should be thanking somebody else. It's an incredible amount of detail. I am a little confused by some of the detail, particularly when I look at anticipated FY19 results. It's all in the past tense. So what I find, what I would find more interesting at this point, having spent the time to go through, I can't say all of it, but a lot of it, is turning this into a dashboard, a very simple dashboard. So I took 1A and 1A1 through 1A7, and because it wasn't a spreadsheet, it was a PDF, I had to cut and paste it a bit. But then I put 1A1, which was periodically evaluate the use of effectiveness and blah, blah, blah. And it says evaluated a fee reduction. And I said, you know, that sounds like a yellow or an orange or something. It doesn't really sound like a red. We didn't do it at all. And it doesn't sound like a green, as in we've accomplished it. And 1A2, which is develop fees for low-cost teen programs. I'm not sure why I put it green, since there's nothing in FY18 accomplishments or whatever. But when I was done with even those 7 things, I had a pretty good image of what I thought we'd accomplished. And I also knew that if I had that, now I could filter this into what are the greens and what are the reds and whatever, and I can make a pretty quick presentation that didn't have to go through it all. I don't know if it's reasonable or unreasonable, particularly because of the time constraint that we have and the fact that you sat here all night and had all this fun listening about swimming, to actually suggest that that might be a really more effective way, and to invite that for the next meeting. And I'll ask my fellow commissioners if they have comments on that, or if they'd like to hear the whole presentation tonight. David?
The page in your report that gave us all of the things that were accomplished, that's enough, because there's a ton of stuff, and the city council is not going to go into the details. They just want to know that one page that has goal 1 and the 5 things that were done, goal 2, 5 things that were done. If we just said yay or nay to that list, that's what the city council could wrap their arms around. And you don't really have to go much more detailed than that.
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm going to take a little contrary opinion to that. Actually, I agree that for city council, or a high-level executive summary approach is appropriate, but I think this is an incredible amount of detailed work, and this is very useful tracking for us as a commission to look at, and useful for staff as well. I mean, it's a kind of it's a method of setting your compass and or setting your North Star and looking up, are we headed in the right direction? And,
right.
And I do like the red, yellow, green idea. I think that would be helpful for quicker at a glance since the information is so dense. But
right. And I would just like to say that I think that because this is the first time that we've done this, I think that the charts, the goals, the programs, the policies set in this way that we can see it now, so you can start to see is a valuable thing for, I think, the commission and for staff. I think it definitely can be refined. I think that's what the goal for me at this meeting tonight was then to mostly have a discussion about this thing and how's the best way to set it up and how should we talk about it and track, our successes and our failures and, that approach, because I think what we'd like to do as staff, and I think the commission would agree, is that it would be nice to at least do this once a year so we have an understanding of what we have accomplished from the time that we spent on the master plan and all the things that we want to achieve in that. We can discuss then what time of year do you do that? Do we do that at the beginning of the year when you have your retreat and start to talk about this thing?
Yes.
So I think it's like the master plan itself, it's kind of in its early stages, and this is the first time we've really started to talk about how we're using it and how we're accomplishing things. So if there's feedback, as Don has started to give, of how we start to look at this thing to better understand it, I think mostly for us, that's kind of what we're looking at, so we can develop this over the next few months and get it.
I definitely view this as being for you and me, and if a summary of that is valuable for us to present to council or council's awareness at some point, I think that that's a really interesting outcome of it. But I think that this is for, not you and me personally, but.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think this is perfect for the off-site every January or February, not May, every January or February, to plot what we want to do for the next year.
I'd just like to follow up with one thing real quickly. Could you say a little bit more about how you would envision staff using this document? That would be helpful for us to understand, I think.
Well, I think mainly for the process that we're going to go into now, the capital improvement in recommending future projects, that this is then kind of a valuable tool of how we're going to do that and what we are going to then prioritize or present to the finance committee of what we want to have as projects in the future. So, we have our priority projects, which are kind of our key things that we want to look at. We want to make sure that we're working on those things and trying to achieve all those priority goals. And then, of course, all 6 goals have multiple programs and projects associated with them that, as staff, and if we had more staff, that we could probably be able to accomplish more. But the staff that we have, we've got to be realistic about what we've got. We've got to be realistic about what the budget that we have. And this, I think, just allows us then to see where we are either achieving or failing, and then to address those kind of 2 issues. So,
Ryan? I'm sorry.
The one comment I would make, I loved it. I thought it was very good. The only thing I didn't like was on page 2, you listed out the goals and then all the different items that fit in that goal. It'd be really nice if you also did that going forward. So because this is kind of like driving the rearview mirror. If you want to help this driving, like you said, the staff, it's very useful for staff. It'd be nice to summarize what we plan to go forward in each of the goals. But yeah, I thought it was very well done. Thank you.
Anything else, Ryan or Jeff?
Well done. I appreciate taking the time to put this together.
Well, I think, we're just at that point of the process of the master plan. I think from staff's point of view that we want to, because of the time and investment that went into the report, that we want to now be actually following this thing as the roadmap that it's supposed to be. This is then one of those ways to do that, by checking in to make sure that we are doing that, so we can have this open dialogue and be transparent about basically what we're doing. again, I think that it's nice to have it now in this format, even though we may simplify it or change it a little bit, but you can see them all then right in front of you of what they are, which is valuable, so you don't have to go and search through the actual master plan itself to see. That just makes it a little bit easier for us to communicate about what is actually taking place with them.
David?
I just have three things to add to those. One is that when you say the dog park, you should say that it's the first dog park in 10 years. And the second thing is the Los Troncos Trail renovations is a big deal. It's not just maintenance, it's also redesign for the next 25 years. And then the third one is the little one, the Cubberley bleachers.
And I would say too that there is a process that we are trying to refine, just because the scope of the projects and programs are multiple departments that are working on these things. So we did our best to circulate it around to everyone so that we could add as much information to it as was possible. I'm hoping that we did our due diligence, that most staff were able to add to it, but there definitely could be things that are missing on the accomplishments themselves. So.
I heard Keith say that he liked it, and he liked all the, I'm sure he liked all the detail. Yes. And in fact, my experience with something like this is 90% of the value is in the preparation of it. It causes introspection about what we really do and so on. And for this audience, I think we should also be interested in the detail. I mean, our predecessors and some of the people here were involved in the details of making the master plan and what 1A1 was, and are we doing it or not doing it? And so I think we should care about that, and not just be at the level of the 6 or 4 goals and what are we doing,
right?
But continually trying to go with all the details as opposed to turning it into a dashboard that could be easily filtered, or just, all of the oranges presented, all the greens presented. And then it becomes a device for celebration, and it becomes a device for whipping or whatever. Right. Not us whipping you, but you whipping yourself kind of thing.
I think the word's reflection.
That'll do.
Well, I do think that it was valuable, just as a staff goal to fill this out, because basically then staff had to go through it and start to read all of them, and that refresher I think is a big help. I think that putting it together in the future, that we should talk about the PRC's role. Maybe we should send this out to the commission as well to start looking through it and adding the things. I mean, there's things you brought up tonight that, again, it's mostly just about refreshing the mind about what we have. There's a lot of stuff that we have here. So unless you're looking at it all the time, you could start to lose some of it.
It should also be a useful tool for seeing what we didn't do. For instance, I see a lot of things here and not many programs or new processes or teen programs or things like that. So it may cause us to reflect that we should have a better mix. And we're supposed to do this over 25 years, but we should have a mix of things.
Right. And I would say, too, for this first year that, staff wasn't overly focused on achieving the goals of the master plan. The master plan has just basically come out, and, a lot of the staff weren't in the development of all the details to it. So, again, this is then a good way, I think, to start to refresh and educate, I think, all those, the staff that is working basically on the goals of the master plan, that there are actually specific goals we want to be working on, and they can see what those are. And then I think that will, again, start to push forward the master plan, because once you start to read them, then you'll start to say, hey, these are the things then that we should be doing, or we have ideas of how to grow these programs. So I think that in the future that there'll be more accomplishments because it'll be focused more on these specific things. So.
I agree with that. I think you've elucidated the role of an aspirational document.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Is it unfair to ask that, I guess it's not unfair to ask, would you look into whether it could be made into a dashboard approach?
Definitely.
And brought back in a useful way that then would be useful, interesting to you and interesting to us, rather than just, and fully understanding that, by the way, it's not, as you point out, we weren't supposed to do everything this year.
Right.
And some of these things, the fact that we haven't even started, that's okay.
Right.
In fact, they could be marked green.
Right.
It's green because it's still on course to be done in 5 years.
And I was excited to see, though, that our top priority projects that we have started to make strides on doing some of those things, since they are long-range plans that will go on for multiple years, that, you know, we've basically started the steps to achieving those things, and that keeps us on course. So.
I have to say that the ones that I sort of picked out to look at, I'm incredibly impressed. Maybe we should end this with one more thing. This was an extremely well-done document, the master plan, the Parks and Rec master plan, and was useful as an example when the comprehensive plan was being done. But I think this is still a better document in terms of being able to do what you just did. And I think evaluating and discussing it properly in detail may be a really good example for how to use the comprehensive plan. Anybody else want to add, or have I ranted enough? Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. And thank you for staying through and thank you for going to Cubberley the other day. Or not Cubberley, the Girl Scouts building. Good evening, Mr. Howard.
Good evening. How is everybody?
And our only mistake was to tell your buddy that he should be here at 8:30, not 9:30.
Yeah. Do you know Darren? No, I don't. She said she put it in folders. She said she'd put it in folders because she didn't want to confuse it. One second, please. I am going to get started in hopes that Natalie returns. There's just a couple pictures that I think might be useful for all of you to see. Adam Howard, Senior Recreation Manager for the City of Palo Alto. We are here today to get some feedback about the seasonal lighting proposal on Cubberley's turf field and recommend staff a path forward. A little bit of background. During the times of daylight savings time, when daylight savings time is over, there's a high demand for athletic fields in Palo Alto. The city has 3 lit turf fields, 2 at Mayfield and 1 at El Camino Complex. And those 3 fields are booked heavily Monday through Friday, 7 days a week until 10 p.m. with peak times really being Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. During those times, everyone kind of crunches and puts as many teams on those spaces as possible, but it's never, quote unquote, enough. In late 2017, the city of Palo Alto was approached by the Palo Alto Soccer Club with a proposal to try out a temporary trial on the Coverly synthetic field where we would bring in temporary lights to see if we could run a trial Monday through Thursday, sunset to 8:30. That proposal was brought to the Parks and Rec Department, or Commission, excuse me, January 23rd. And with feedback from this commission, we moved forward with the trial. The basics of the proposal, thank you. The proposal that was brought forward brought 4 to 6 temporary light stations to Coverly Field. Lights were solar powered with generators as backups. Lights would be used Monday through Thursday, sunset to 8:30 p.m. with a hard cutoff. So they actually ended practice at 8:15 so that the lights were off at 8:30. All additional activity for those times would be sent through Coverly Community Center, so no pickup or drop off on Nelson. That additional time would be used for practice only, so kind of limiting the crowds that come and the noise levels that are provided. Those lights were secured and had 24/7 tech support, and the lights were placed in a way that provided a little impact to the track as possible. So we did run the trial, and some of the output from that, the trial actually ended up only being about 4 weeks in duration, and we had roughly 60 to 80 participants a day, so it was about 4 to 6 teams that were using those time slots. We did end up using the 6 full light stations because with just 4, the middle of the field was extremely dark and unusable. The solar-powered lights provided everything. The generators never kicked on. The schedule of Monday through Thursday was stuck to with no reported incidents. There was some minor congestion on Nelson, but that issue seemed to be quickly resolved. And the light stations were placed, had minimal impact on the track, but we didn't think were the best location for full field use. During that trial, my contact information was provided before, during, and after. We had one contact during the trial about Nelson, which we quickly resolved, and then we provided a survey after to see how the neighbors felt it went. We did it to the 18 residents that bordered the field. We gave them self-addressed stamped envelopes so that they could take it and send it back, or they could take it online. And what you will see are the responses from last year's trial, and maybe very difficult to see. Ultimately, we felt that it was successful. There was one person that really felt that the lights had a negative impact of the people that responded. And that was not so much that the light was coming into their house, but if they looked out towards the field, they could see it. Not a lot we could do about that, but I will say that that particular residence was directly in front of a tree that was not very healthy, and so that tree did not provide as much coverage as all the other trees, and that tree has since done better, so that problem might be resolved. And then the other person that had negative really talked about not having enough participants, setting precedent, and they didn't feel it was essential, which doesn't really reflect on the trial itself. So we are here now today because with daylight savings coming to an end, Palo Alto Soccer has approached again and would like to continue the seasonal lighting plan at Coverly for the winter of 2018-2019. This would run 2 different periods, November 5th, which is the start, or the end, excuse me, of daylight savings, through December 14th, and then January 7th through March 8th, and they would actually remove the lights between that period, so the 15th to January 7th. Because it is a longer time, we're really going to focus on safety, which includes orange safety fencing, high-density foam, to any area that we feel is exposed. But we think it's important to note that there were no safety concerns at the end of the last trial, but we just figured it was the extra precaution would be wise to take. And because the November through December timeframe the field is used a little bit heavier for full games, we thought some better locations for the lights would be appropriate. one of them, the overhead isn't showing, but there's 2 lights in each end zone, which is the same way that we did it last year. And then we would put the 2 sideline fields actually off the field on the other side of the track. In the pictures, you can see one is this empty dirt area that's beside the bleachers. This would be out of the way, wouldn't get in the way of people watching if there was a game, and clearly wouldn't interfere with the track or the field, which we thought would be a good use of space. And the other one is on the other side, adjacent to where we store the goals when not in use. Staff really prefer this option as it doesn't have any impact on the track or the field, but still provides the needs of lighting the middle of the field. So that was the tweak that we made that made us feel better about the extended amount of time. And really that extended amount of time is what we felt the necessary to come here today, because it was a little unclear when we did it whether we were just talking January through March or were we talking to end of daylight savings. And because we didn't feel we had a clear answer, we wanted to be sure that we gave public the opportunity to respond. So we have emailed the neighborhood associations, hand-delivered information to the neighbors surrounding the field, inviting them both to this meeting and to email me directly. I've only had 1 email response at this time, and it was pro soccer, please let them continue as they did last year. So that's the information I have for you, and we wanted your feedback. No speakers here to provide additional concerns, but as before, if we move forward, we will have our all information out there to make sure that if there are any concerns, we can address them immediately. So that's it for me, and open it up for questions or comments.
Yeah, so I think this is great, Adam, so thank you again. If I understand correctly, based on what you just said about the new location of the lighting stations that are in the middle of the field, you won't have anything on the track any longer? There will be no intrusion onto the track, is that right?
There would be no intrusion. Okay, this location right here, although I measured, it might stick out 6 inches, but I don't think it will. But it should have very little, if any, on the track or the field.
Okay. Is there a long-term plan, either for permanent lighting or to do this just year after year?
So I think the long-term lighting is a kind of a different conversation. Something that if the board would want to address, the commission wanted to address, we could, but that hasn't been discussed. This is really just going to be a seasonal lighting plan, which really would only be in effect, would be in effect year after year during the time that daylight savings is over. However, there is if this field is replaced with a brand new all-weather track, that could change our feelings about putting these lights out there. Now, if this works, that's another option, but still we might not feel the same way about putting these on brand new turf fields or brand new all-weather tracks. So barring the changes, this would be the seasonal lighting plan moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. When we put them down on the turf, we put plywood over the top?
Yeah, they're on I don't remember but yes, they were put on the turf, and there was no damage to the turf last year.
Okay, but if we had new turf, you'd be hesitant to do that?
Well, I think the hesitancy is more about the track and driving out and back, because they're big and they come out on a truck and have to be towed out onto the field. So there's additional concerns about the wear and tear of that.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that we would say no, but I think we would want to readdress the conversation based on whatever changes were made out there.
When we have, like, high schools, they have the all-weather track, and I assume maintenance vehicles drive on that track. Isn't it? It might be worth a call to Gunn or Pally to see how they handle their tracks and how careful they have to be.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be a conversation we'd have based on whatever changes occur out there.
Okay. And these lighting units, are they the only type out there, or are there other competitors that might have smaller ones that might get easier to get on?
We did look for ones with smaller footprints, but they typically are more generator operated rather than the solar power. So when we last checked, which really was about 6 months ago, we didn't find any with a smaller footprint.
Okay. But yeah, overall,
I'm sure they're coming, though.
Yeah, you just give time. Overall, I think this is a good use. We have this field there. We have the demand. I think it's a good idea. It ends at 8:30, which I think is a very reasonable time. And the fact that we had all these surveys and there really was only 1.5 people that complained, and half of them weren't even returned, which suggests that they were happy with it. So I'd say go for it.
Adam, thanks for putting this together. Obviously, we have need for field use and lighting. What are the other uses of the field?
Such as outside of soccer?
Outside of soccer, yeah.
Those are the primary permitted users because they're the priority groups during the season, but it does sometimes get lacrosse or ultimate frisbee, but soccer's probably 99%
And
of the.
what's the process, I'm not on this committee at all, but in terms of how field users are decided, so this would seem to make that Cumberly Field a very coveted asset for groups to use if they know that it could be lit. How do we determine that Palo Alto Soccer Club has first priority use to that year over year? And what can other groups do if they were to determine, oh, you know, we'd be very interested in this field because it can be lit at night during the winter?
So the process would be, the field would be brokered as it is for any other space, meaning we look at residents, priority sport, and so forth. This has actually been offered to all the clubs, but because Palo Alto is footing the bill, it's basically if you're willing to pony up for some of the lighting prices, then we'll broker your slots just like we would any other field.
Sure, no, I understand that, but this is the only field that would, or have we determined that there's other fields available for usage of lights?
This would be the only one that could house temporary lights because it's turf. Grass couldn't handle the additional play.
Right, right. So if another group came in and conceivably wanted to put in lights, they would have an opportunity to, but they would first have to have the opportunity for field use, correct?
Right, so they'd have to be a priority group in order to even kind of have the opportunity first. And the other priority groups have had the offer to them.
Great, and appreciate the outreach to the community, and I think I may have asked this before, but just quickly, what would it take? We need to have a turf field in order to have lighting. Is that what we're
Yeah, turf
determining?
is key so that it can handle the additional play. The grass really wouldn't handle the extra play that would come with lighting it.
Great. Well, thank you for all the work on this.
Thank you.
David?
Thank you very much. Being a near neighbor, I really appreciate your going through the extra mile to get feedback from everybody and reacting to it. And the only concern I still have is I want to see the number of participants increased. And going back to what Commissioner Lemire said, is if Palo Alto Soccer doesn't come up with enough people, that the other teams should be allowed to use it, because if we have all of this resource and only 30 or 40 kids show up, that's not good long term. So it was okay for the trial, but I want to see more participants, and they've got plenty of time now to deal with that.
And I appreciate that, and Palo Alto Soccer's addressed that, and they feel like they'll probably be closer to 100, which is actually quite a bit. I mean, even 50 kids on a field for practice, they are very well organized to pull that off, but they are anticipating more now that they kind of have planned for it and see it coming. Jeff?
Thank you, Adam, very much for pulling this together on short notice. I know that this was an effort on your part to act quickly, particularly after a week off, and then surprise, here you go. So thank you for making that happen. We all appreciate that. And I would reiterate, I agree that the peak demand for fields is evenings in the time when daylight savings is off. The weekends is the weekends fields are open. I'm out there, and there's there's open slots. One other point I'd like to add that the ad hoc discussed when we met with staff is the compromise timeframe which we're permitting this seasonal lighting. Palo Alto Soccer Club had actually asked to start the temporary seasonal lights a week early. Staff reasonably articulated concerns that when we did this trial initially, it was just a trial, and don't want to open ourselves to concerns about excessive expansion of a program, like just get your finger in the door and then flip it wide open. And so the general guideline that we're working with is that this program would be permitted during standard time, Pacific Standard Time, when daylight savings is off. And so that puts a clear guardrail on and bracketing when the program would be permissible. And I think that's a great compromise. I do know for a fact that cars do run on the artificial turf, or the artificial track at Gunn. This weekend is homecoming. They'll be out pulling the floats around. So I'm sure that's a consideration, and when we get into a study and to spec out the project, we're not turning over new ground in this one. And we'll get some good advice on that, I'm sure. And I certainly Palo Alto Soccer Club's going to fill up the field probably with more people than we recommend. I don't think that's a concern. So thank you very much.
Adam, thank you. So this is an action item. Action item implies that we should have a motion. And the motion should be to support the staff Cubberley Fields seasonal lighting proposal. Do you need anything more than what I just said?
Nope, that would do it.
Is there?
I do have one question before we move. In the spring or in the winter, in the January to March timeframe, will the lights be off of the track or on the track?
I think our ideal situation would be to leave them where this priority is. If that absolutely didn't work, we would probably go back to the 50-50, but I don't foresee that being a problem.
Because that's something we talked about. I agree it would be great to keep them off the track, and particularly.
Yeah, I mean, this is the ideal, and Palo Alto Soccer agrees to that. And because they can be pointed, it shouldn't cause any additional problems.
Sure, and particularly as we're looking to redo the track and the turf field, that kind of sets the precedent for where the lights would be located. So I'm supportive of that, and I'd be happy to make a motion.
Please.
I'll move that we adopt the seasonal Cubberley lighting plan as proposed.
Do I have a seconder?
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. And Adam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And once again, looking after our scarce and valuable resources.
Yeah. All of the ones you listed, I'm like, oh wait, that's me. Thank you.
I saw that. The final item is to go back to what should have been the first item and have the department report with Darren. And thank you for being here so late, Darren.
No problem. Good evening, Darren Anderson with Community Services. I've got a couple items for you. First is the Cubberley Master Plan. The second of the 4 community meetings to reimagine Cubberley will occur on November 1st from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Cubberley Pavilion. The meeting's open to everyone, whether they attended the first meeting or not. And at the meeting, we'll begin to hone in on a vision for Cubberley based on the results of the first meeting. All the materials related to the project, including the summary of the first meeting, can be found on the project website, which is pausd.org/Cubberley Co-Design. We discussed the Renzel Marsh project, and I got a recent update from Public Works that I'd like to share with you. The new repaired levee is 100% complete now. It's been seeded along the outside edge and mulched with wood chips and coconut fiber matting. Base rock is currently being added to the top of this new levee, which will give maintenance vehicle access all the way around the pond. A berm has been placed between this is hard without a visual, but imagine it as two ponds, a north pond and a south pond. There's now a berm that kind of separates the two, and that's now in place with a spillway that has pipes that carry the water from the north pond, where the water will be discharged from the treatment plant. It'll flow through that spillway into the southern pond, which has just been excavated and cleaned out. The pond in the north side has got a large pile of soil, which all came from the excavated southern portion. It looks really large. They've seeded that. And interestingly, I walked it the other day at a peak freeway times, and as you round the corner behind this pile, the volume of the traffic dies away completely, almost so much so that my staff that was with me were checking their ears if they were clogged. It was just so startlingly quiet. Looking forward to seeing the seeding that they put on this take root. Hopefully we'll get some rain soon, because this obviously can't be hand watered, because it is an island in essence. It's set off, which I think once vegetated will have some really good habitat benefits. It's significantly larger than all the other islands we had in the pond previously combined. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. And depending on how the vegetation takes, we may, that is the open space team, come in and plant that in the future with plants from Save the Bay Nursery or elsewhere. And then the remaining part, when will we get water into this pond? When will that start? The remaining part of the contract is to finish the influent pipe. That's the pipe coming from the treatment plant towards that north pond. So they just entered into a contract soon, or with the contractor. They've issued the notice to proceed. They anticipate that it's both the inlet pipe and this outlet pipe that takes the water out of that Renzel pond and into the Madero Creek, which flows into the flood basin. So both those will be worked on and new. They anticipate that will be done in the spring of 2019, if not sooner, but by at least the spring of 2019. The Coverly Field and Track Project, so we've talked about this before too, that we've got a plan to replace the synthetic turf and to do something with the track July 1st of this next year. So we're doing the design process right now, which incorporates, or rather includes, the cost estimates to look at different options. It's a little more than we had anticipated on our preliminary estimates, that is. So we're still working on that cost estimate. And the key thing we're trying to figure out is, can we also do an all-weather track? We haven't ever done one in Palo Alto before, or at least for the city-maintained areas. So this would be new to us. And it'll be a challenge to fund them both. But we're going to do our best and see what we can do. So I'll be reporting back on that soon. And we'll probably have a community meeting in November, December to reach out to the community and say, okay, this is the funding we have. This is the options we're looking at in terms of the field and for this track. And then the last report.
Excuse me, Darren, on that, I'm wondering if there's any opportunity for outreach to any of the Friends groups to fill the gap. If we're close to potentially getting the all-weather track, is there some outreach we can do to help make sure that happens?
That's a great idea. I think we can.
I'll work with you on that, Darren.
Okay.
I mean, another option is there's private schools that may want to use this also, so they may be willing to chip in a little if they see that this is a track they could use for their own sports programs.
Good idea.
Great.
Yeah, there's a lot of interest from current users of the track.
Great. So I'll keep you abreast of that public outreach meeting, and we can discuss it. The opening of the 7.7 acres up at Foothills Park, the site is now ready for opening. We're just waiting to set up the ribbon cutting, checking with the mayor's schedule. We're hoping for very early November is the game plan, and as soon as I get confirmation on the mayor's schedule, I'll be announcing that to the commission and to all our stakeholders and publicizing it for the regular visitors of Foothills Park as well. And then lastly, to reiterate, I think something that you had heard via email through me, and that's that the Los Trencos Trail and the Costanoan Trail that had been closed for so long are now opened again and being enjoyed by park visitors. And that concludes the department report.
Anybody have any questions for Darren?
I had a question about the Renzel Marsh. right along the path there, right by Matadero Creek, there's a whole bunch of mulch or whatever that's been put in. That's permanent, or is that just temporary?
So there's coconut husk and mulch, and it's been seeded. So what I anticipate is, excuse me, that once the grass and plants mature and grow up, it'll replace the need for a lot of the mulch. And it'll break away anyways. It doesn't last more than a season or so.
Okay.
It's only about 2 or 3 inches because it's on a slope.
And that would mean dry, that's not a marshy area, that's just a...
This is on the exterior of yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And the reason why the previous one was wet and there were tule reeds and cattails growing is because there were so many holes in that levee, hence the need to do the repair.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? David?
So in the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the Balin's comprehensive plan and the ITT property. Do you have any kind of an update since then?
Yeah, thank you. There's going to be a community meeting coming up on November 7th. I'll be sending out an email to the commission and to the stakeholders. We're just waiting. I need one last bit of information from the consultant before I send out the invite. But the reading room's reserved, and we'll be hosting that pretty soon. That meeting will include the review of the Bixby Park conceptual plan and an action plan that we have for the BCCP.
Just one quick question. When you say that they've put out the RFP or contract for the pipes for the in and out, and they'll be in the spring, does that mean that part of the pond sits empty in the meantime?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Keith.
In one of the emails that we received this last week, there was something about the Magic Forest over at Rinconada. Did you see that email?
I did.
And was that accurate, or was it?
Yeah, I think it is accurate. Staff noticed the same dilemma that the redwoods, there are approximately 50 coast redwoods in the Magic Forest at Rinconada Park that have been underperforming, looking really poor. We hired a well-respected arborist firm, Hort Science, to do an inspection and make recommendations. They came out in 2017, did their analysis of the soil, the trees, the root system, and came back with a series of recommendations that varied from decompacting the soil, it was heavily compacted, lack of irrigation wasn't sufficient. Some trees were getting hit with water and not enough. For some of the others, additional soil amendments of compost and mulch should be added. And we implemented all those along with some pruning recommendations and a couple removals for trees that were too far gone. So those have all been implemented and are being sustained. I was out there today looking at the site, and we're erring on the side. You might have seen in the email, one of the concerns was it's a little wet. You've got poor drainage. That's actually in response to very carefully and making sure we're adequately watering it. Probably to a fault, but we're erring on the side of not letting them dry out, which we know was part of the problem that Hort Science identified. So we'll dial that back and try to get a little better. But you're not going to see the effects of these remedies for about 2 to 3 years. Trees are slow to respond, but they are resilient. So as long as we stick with the program of ensuring the soil is not compacted, we're irrigating properly, and keeping a layer of mulch separated and distant from the trunk, but over the site to help with the compaction and water retention, we anticipate the trees will come back.
How about ferns? The letter mentioned that there are no ferns there anymore.
Yeah, when I first started with the city, there were some ferns there, and gradually over time, they just kind of faded out and got outcompeted, either with foot traffic wearing them out and outcompeted by the invasive ivy that's in there. We don't use herbicide in our parks, and ivy is incredibly resistant. Even if you hand pull it and rake it out and try to get the root system, often it comes back, which is what we're seeing. Most of the effort we're putting into the Magic Forest is tree related and less so for the plants. So we haven't come back and tried to replant the ferns. That may be possible, but right now, again, the focus is for the trees themselves. There was also a report that there was bamboo in there. There is a little weird stand. I don't know why it was planted, or maybe it just volunteered. There's a small stand back there, and it's kind of in the same boat as the ivy. It's difficult to remove once it's established without using chemicals. The other thing is if we try to remove it, I'm a little nervous about impacting the roots of the coast the redwoods. So we're going to monitor that, and my hope is eventually with the CIP to renovate Rinconada Park that we can incorporate some improvements in there, maybe replanting, but for right now the focus is on the tree remedies.
Thank you very much. We hope the magical forest is magic. In terms of identifying topics, I would suggest that rather than trying to go through a list right now, I'll meet with Kristen and arrange a topic. And Jeff is always good at identifying what we need to do, and so he and I and Kristen will get together and do that unless anybody has anything in particular.
Can we get an update on the Bowl Park update and the AT&T property?
I have the Bull Park and the AT&T.
Not Bowl Park, Bullware.
Well, okay, including Bull Park, we need an update on the.
But Bullware is the one near Fry's and the AT&T property next door.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they're desperate to hear about? Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Well, ad hoc, we skipped over. I have just two things to note.
Sure.
We had our school city liaison meeting this week, or last week. Very calm. No ranting and raving by any commissioners. The only thing that they talked that influenced us was the Cubberley update. And the school board members had a suggestion that we need more outreach to high schoolers to get their input on Cubberley. That was the only comment, but it was pretty much the same update that we've seen from Cubberley before. Then also we had the Fry site, that North Ventura site. I'm on the liaison for that, for the committee, for the CAP, which is, I'm not sure what does CAP stand for? Comprehensive Area Plan.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive area plan.
So they're going to be, this was just the first one, was just the icebreaker to get to know everybody, and next week, or next month, we will start doing the real stuff. What's strange about it is it's all privately owned. And if you talk about Cubberley, if we want to do something with Cubberley, we do it. Here, if you want to do something, now you have to convince the private owners to do it, and I'm not sure exactly how well that's going to work, but the area now is from El Camino to the train tracks, and then from Page Mill all the way to Lambert, which is the one that runs by Bulwer Park. So Bulwer Park is not part of it. It's right next to it. But some of the people from the neighborhood were really insistent that Bulwer be kind of thought about as you make these plans. But we'll see.
Any update about the solar panels and JLS? Did you, anything more with that?
They're still there. That's the update.
I meant with other schools.
Oh, that's a good question. Did you ever get your...
There are no other schools.
Yeah.
That was their commitment.
But there seemed to be some question about plans that may be in process that have already been approved but haven't been implemented, such as solar panels at JLS on the roofs of buildings. We could be good to get some clarification on that.
When we were at our meeting, when we were at the city council meeting a month and a half ago, they said there's nothing else in work. But I think that was a little misleading. I think they meant no new ones would be approved. They're still doing some construction, but I don't think there's any more construction on open fields. They're doing some rooftop solar panels.
Right, they put a ton of them in Terman and one other place, but they were over parking lots. So I'm just concerned about the open space.
Keith made a lot of friends with that.
That's not fun.
But I would say, I have to say that doing it when we did it, there was some question about urgency. I think it made a difference to the fact that your question of there are no more going on. If we had not acted when we did, I think, and it provided a platform for Kristen to work with the school board representative as well, and I think it was a great outcome and appreciated. And I appreciate Keith and Jeff really pushing that forward. I think that was well done on their part. I thank them for that. Anything else? Can I have a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Darren wants to object.